Okay. Okay, this is the April 4, 2022, 4 p.m. Glendale Water and Power Commission meeting to help slow the transmission of COVID-19 and protect the health and safety of the community. City Council, as well as board and commission meetings, will continue to be closed to the public for in-person attendance. The public is encouraged to watch and participate from the safety of their home, to practice social distancing. Meetings are broadcast live on Glendale TV, viewable on Spectrum Cable, Channel 6, and AT&T Uverse, Channel 99. Meetings are also streamed live in high definition on the city's webpage, glendaleca.gov/live, and on YouTube, and on Apple TV, Roku, and Amazon Fire devices using a free app called ScreenWeave and choosing Glendale TV. For public comment and questions during the meeting, call 818-937-8100. Public comments on a specific agenda item will be taken when that agenda item is discussed. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. And with that, let's go to the first item, which is roll call.
Before I proceed with the roll call, and for the record, President Peterson will join the meeting at a later time. Commissioner Flanagan.
Present.
Commissioner Jasmadarian.
I'm here.
Commissioner Kadikian.
Present.
Commissioner Law.
Present.
Okay, next item. It's a consent item. The following. Sorry, Catalina, do you read it? Go ahead.
I usually do, sorry.
Okay.
So next item is 2 consent items. 2A, approval of the February 7, 2022 meeting minutes.
I'll move to approve the minutes.
Second it.
Okay, let's have a roll call.
Commissioner Flanagan.
Yes.
Commissioner Jasmadarian.
Commissioner, are you on mute?
I don't see her.
I don't see her anymore.
I think she may have dropped.
Okay. Commissioner Kadikian.
Approve, yes.
And Commissioner Law.
Approve.
The next item is 2B, approval of the March 7, 2022 meeting minutes.
I'll move to approve the minutes.
Second.
Okay, let's get a roll call.
Commissioner Flanagan.
Yes.
Commissioner Jasmadarian. She's disconnected.
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Kadikian.
Yes.
Commissioner Law.
Yes.
And Commissioner Jasmadarian, we had approved the first item, which was the August, let's see here.
February 7th.
February 7th meeting. It was approved by the 3 present commissioners. Did you want to give your approval or not on
yes,
that
that's
item?
Fine.
Okay.
That's fine.
Perfect. All right. Next item, please.
Next item is 3 GWP Commission and staff comments.
Okay. All right, Commissioner Flanagan, if you want to go first, if you have any comments.
No specific comments at this time.
Okay. Commissioner Lal, any comments?
No comments at this time. Thank you.
Commissioner Jasmadarian, any comments?
No comments. Thank you.
I don't have any comments either. Does the staff have any comments? Okay, hearing none. Let's move on to the next agenda item.
The next item is 4 reports. 4A, clean energy update.
Yes, commission members. Today, we're going to be giving 2 reports. We're going to give the clean energy update and the electric reliability report. So I'd like to introduce Chi Valdez. She's our manager of the resource planning and power management. And she'll be presenting the clean energy update for staff. And then, G, you could introduce yourself, give us a little bit of your background as well. So, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Let me see here. Okay. Yeah, so we're on Catalina, right?
Yeah, it's on.
Okay. Okay, good evening, members of the commission. My name is Chi Valdez. I'm actually Integrated Resource Planning Administrator for Glendale Water and Power. I've been with the city since 2009 under power management. I've done power contracts, I've done scheduling, I've done power planning, and now I'm the administrator. So this presentation provides an update on Glendale's clean energy initiatives. Next slide, please. So GWP has a long history of supporting clean energy in Glendale. We are one of the early adopters of renewable energy in the state, way before the Renewable Portfolio Standard program was established. GWP is proud of its commitment to clean energy. We're committed to deliver a portfolio that will provide Glendale's electric customers with reliable, affordable, and environmentally sustainable power as we transition to the 100% clean energy future. This report provides an update on clean energy programs and projects that are currently being undertaken. And I do want to mention that the program managers are also here to provide answers to project-specific questions that you may have. Next slide, please. So GWP has a diverse mix of energy resources. In our recent power source disclosure or power content label filing to the CEC, approximately 64% of our electricity sold to our retail customers came from renewable and clean energy resources. And almost 40% of that came from RPS eligible facilities, such as our High Winds, Pleasant Valley and Pebble Spring Wind projects, Titan Small Hydroelectric Plant, Ormat and Whitegrass Geothermal Facilities, just to name a few. And that's not counting the 23 megawatts of local rooftop solar PV generation that directly serve our customer load. So our power content label shows Glendale has surpassed California's renewable percentage by about 7 points. In comparison with neighboring munis, Glendale is a front runner in terms of renewable and clean energy. Next slide, please.
Do you mind if I ask a quick question now while we're looking at that previous slide, or do you want to proceed?
Sure, yeah, go ahead. Yes.
Okay. Because I just wanted to make sure that I'm reading this correctly, because the numbers are actually quite dramatic. If you go back one slide. So this is our 2020 power consumption. This is what Glendale actually used, correct?
This is what we sold to our customers, yes.
Right. Okay, so this is when we turn the lights on in Glendale, this is the power we actually pulled down off of the grid.
That is correct.
We have 10% more eligible, actually 10.3% more eligible renewable resource consumed in our city than our nearest competitor in our nearest city. Is that correct? Which is Pasadena?
That is correct.
And if you compare a highly polluting resource such as coal, we are far below any of the neighboring cities, correct? So we have 2.6% consumption of coal, of energy produced by coal, whereas Pasadena has nearly 40% and Burbank has fully 25.8%.
That is correct.
And does this tell us how much, in addition to how much is eligibly, falls under the category of eligible renewable, how much of our power is non-carbon based? Even if it's not considered a renewable resource, it's still non-carbon?
Yeah, so in addition to the renewable resources listed here, which are, like the biomass, geothermal, the small hydroelectric, solar and wind, we didn't really have like solar yet in our portfolio. We are counting the large hydroelectric as clean energy, as well as nuclear generation from our nuclear plant.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I just, this is a very interesting chart. And the numbers are very, very illustrative of the different power mixes between these adjacent agencies. So thank you for that.
You're welcome. So going on to the next slide. So this chart shows GWP's actual and forecasted clean energy position in relation to California's renewable and zero carbon targets of 60% by 2030 and 100% clean by 2045. So GWP is committed to meet and achieve its clean energy goals and mandates. So we have an active program in place to continuously evaluate and develop renewable projects. We collaborate with other SCAPA participants to enter into power contracts for renewable energy projects that would otherwise be too large for us. So recently, we've added Whitegrass and Sarpy Geothermal, Elan Solar and Battery, as well as Shoal LFG renewable projects. So based on our current portfolio, we are sufficiently resourced with renewable energy through 2027. So if you focus on that data point in 2027, new local DERs and imported renewable projects will be added in the near future to close the gap. So the additional 72 megawatts that we get, the 72 megawatts capacity on the STS line will enable us to import more renewable energy at that time. There's another data point here that I do want to highlight, which is 2021. So if you know, like if I mentioned in 2020 we're 39.9%, we're actually estimating a little lower when we release our next power content label for 2021. That is because of the delay in our Star Peak project. I'll cover that one in the latter slides. Next slide, please. So on the demand side, we're seeing an exponential growth on distributed energy resources. Currently, approximately 2,200 or 2.5% of GWP customers have solar PV, providing approximately 23 megawatts of installed capacity. In 2013 and 2016, we've interconnected a total of 4 fuel cells. So we have 3 for DreamWorks and 1 for Home Depot. In 2016, we've installed our first 1 megawatt 2-hour grid scale energy storage at Grandview substation. And in 2029, customers actually started to install battery energy storage, either combined with their PV system or as a standalone installation. As of today, we have 74 installations, or approximately 3.4% of PV systems are paired with energy storage. I also want to add here that we have a 400 kilowatt pump hydro at James Rest Pump Station, providing between 10 to 15% of the station's annual energy needs. Next slide, please. So as I've mentioned, GWP has a long history of supporting clean energy, including local and solar development. When City Council approved the GWP Solar Solutions in 2002, GWP became one of the first municipality to offer solar rebates in California. In 2007, GWP installed the first city-owned and operated solar system at Glendale Community College. Presently, we have helped install 11.7 megawatts of local solar with GWP incentives. In addition to incentivized installations, many residents and business customers have installed another 11 megawatts of additional local solar. Today, those installations are generating over 30 gigawatt hours of local, clean, renewable energy. So to put this in perspective, 23 megawatts represents approximately 6% of our peak load, as shown here in this chart. LADWP's solar program is about 7% of their peak load, and compared to Burbank and Pasadena at 4%. Next slide, please. So in fiscal year 2000, GWP began offering financial incentives to customers to invest in a variety of energy saving and net energy metering solar measures. Through June of 2020, GWP has invested over 4.6 million or 47.2 million in energy efficiency programs and 18.5 million in local solar projects. Since 2001, GWP energy efficiency programs have averaged close to 12.9 gigawatts in the first year and about 2,000 gigawatts in cumulative life measure savings. Next slide, please. So this chart is actually a comparison of our energy efficiency with other California utilities. So all California's publicly owned utilities collaborate to develop a cost-effective energy efficiency programs, and they prepare this annual report to their customers as well as to the California Energy Commission in a consistent and comprehensive manner. And based on the current and previous reports, Glendale is consistently ranked as one of the top performing POU in the state in terms of energy savings. Next slide, please. So on transportation electrification, so the CEC has partnered with the Department of Motor Vehicles to track zero emission vehicles. So that includes battery electric, plug-in, and fuel cell vehicles. So as you can see, there is a steady growth of EV population in Glendale. And according to CEC's data report, there are approximately 4,276 battery and plug-in hybrid electric vehicles registered within Glendale territory at the end of 2020. So to foster integration of growing EVs, Glendale offers generous rebates to install charging stations at GWP customer homes or businesses. So the rebates for residential customers were offering up to $599 per charger, and rebates for commercial and multifamily homes up to $6,000 per charger for a cap of $50,000 per customers. So far, we've incentivized 214 chargers and paid out approximately $172,000. And around 95% of rebates issued since the program launched in 2017 have been for residential customers. Next slide, please. So GWP is expanding its EV charging infrastructure to make public charging more accessible. So currently we have 17 public charging stations, 16 level 2 ports, and 1 level 3 or DCFC port. So 27 stations are currently under construction with a plan to get to 93 by the end of the next fiscal year. So the most upcoming EV charging station projects are level 2 stations. And based on the last 12 months statistics generated by our network provider, there were about 6,100 charging sessions recorded using about 97.7 megawatts of energy from our system. So it generated approximately 23,000 in revenue. In this revenue from charging stations are used to offset the cost of electricity, maintenance, and operating fees for the chargers. Next slide, please. So the next slides will cover the status of our ongoing projects. So to start off with Franklin, next slide, please. So the Franklin DR aims to provide at least 10 megawatts of peak savings or load shift by year 4. We have 1.3 megawatts under control at the end of 2021. So that's about 40% of the goal for that year. As of today, we have enrolled about 1,600 customers for a total of 1.6 under control. And last year, we called on 2 DR events with high participation rate of 98 and 99%. However, the rate of delivery range only between, like 71 to 78%. So customers with Nest, Ecobee, Carrier, and Energate thermostats can join the program. Honeywell and Emerson will be available for integration in the next couple of months. Next slide, please.
I had a question, if possible.
Yes, sir.
On this Franklin demand response for, I know we're substantially behind for 2021. Are we expected to catch up what we're behind on 2021 and meet 2022 by the end of 2022?
That is correct. Yes, so that's their target and that's their goal, and they're confident that they're able to meet the targets for 2022 by the end of that year.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. So moving on to Lime Energy Efficiency Program. So this program was launched on November of 2021. So the first installations were actually done in January of 22. Currently, there's 17 projects completed in January and February of this year. So around 230 projects are currently in the pipeline at different stages. So outreach continues to the top 300 commercial customers by GWP staff via phone calls and emails. And Lime is actively marketing the program via different channels and continuing walk-ins to businesses. Next slide, please. So moving on to Sunrun Virtual Power Plant. So GWP has been negotiating this 25 megawatt front-of-the-meter distributed solar plus battery project with Sunrun for the past 2 years. On February 8th, staff presented to City Council the negotiated key commercial terms and highlighted some of the associated risks. We also provided a cost and rate impact analysis. On that meeting, the City Council has directed staff to renegotiate with Sunrun to address the following items: the termination for convenience term, the size, cost, and duration of the project, incentives for customers, bankruptcy protection, as well as concerns around liability, insurance, and homeowners protections. So since then, we have been working with Sunrun to address these concerns and made some progress. So on the termination for convenience, Sunrun has accepted our proposal to extend our right to terminate until the end of the second year of the term with 6 months notice. The size of the project will be reduced from 25 megawatts down to 12 megawatts with option to increase up to 15 megawatts. So that eliminates this buy-down provision. The total cost of the project will be reduced due to the reduction in size. However, Sunrun is firm on the cost structure. So the energy cost remains at 13 cents per kilowatt delivered, and the battery capacity at $137.5 per kilowatt year. The contract duration remains at 25 years because any reduction in duration will increase the cost of energy and capacity. As for incentives, GWP will provide bill credits to single-family home customers based on the size of battery installed, subject to a cap. Sunrun may also provide additional cash incentives, especially to multifamily properties, to encourage participation, as long as it is implemented in a non-discriminatory fashion. So any marketing and bundled offers will be subject to city approval. We're currently working with our risk consultants and insurance brokers regarding creditworthiness, bankruptcy, liability, and insurance concerns, and to ensure that we have sufficient letter of credit amounts to mitigate risks. And the plan is to bring the renegotiated agreements to the City Council by end of May. Next slide, please. So on the GWP-owned local and solar storage program, our Chief AGM, Dan Scorza, will provide updates. Dan?
Hello, everybody. So I'm Dan Scorza. I'm the Assistant General Manager for the electric side, and I was going to comment on this slide. So here we had two projects that we were looking at. Actually, it's two programs. One, we were looking at the Civic Center parking structure. And then the other one was our owner's engineers for a city-owned properties, developing PV and some type of storage at city-owned sites. So this has been ongoing. The final reports are probably due by June or so, where we'll have a little more definite recommendations. So we're looking at about 10 megawatts of PV solar in general. Some sites are really small. They're like police and fire and smaller city facilities. But some sites are larger. The study includes parking lots, rooftop solar on buildings. And what we're finding out, sometimes it's, when we look out there on properties, or we look throughout Glendale, but one of the things that we don't see is some of the hidden costs. So some parking lots may require extensive seismic and code upgrades. So if we touch it, we're going to put solar on it, then all of a sudden we got the burden of bringing up to code and also doing seismic upgrades to buildings. And so again, these projects here that we're looking at are taking all that into account. So we'll have a list, we'll have an idea of what the costs are, the visible cost that, how much is it per solar? Is it $2 or $3, per kilowatt, or the hidden costs? There's structural, there's code upgrades. Some of the parking structures may require ADA elevators that if we touch it, at that time we would have to install elevators as well. So it's more of a comprehensive study that we're looking at. But again, it's 10 megawatts of PV solar, and some of the storage items that we'll be looking at, or storage component, most likely will be at police and fire facilities where they require backup power. The bigger utility level storage will probably be done at our facilities, at our substations, so that we don't end up controlling 100 or hundreds of individual batteries, but we would have a more manageable amount of storage in the order of, maybe 13 sites. We have 13 substations, for example, where we would have substantial batteries, and the PV energy that's generated through these projects will be charging up those local batteries. Again, those batteries aren't in this study per se, but we will identify some locations where we will put some energy storage associated with the photovoltaic plants that we're looking in these two described projects here. Those are my general comments, and maybe at the end, if you have questions, you're welcome to ask. Thank you. And that's my statement. Thank you.
Thanks, Dan. So moving on to our next project here. So we're currently working on a DER request for proposal. So the purpose of this is to solicit proposals for the following programs. So the first one that we're looking at is the commercial solar plus storage. Our desire is to have, like a front of the meter distributed energy resource as an option.
I'm sorry, but could you define that term? Front of meter, could you define the term?
The front of the meter is basically we're able to control, especially the energy storage, that it is dispatchable, just like how we are modeling Sunrun.
Okay. I just think that it's good to really distinguish that from behind the meter and the difference in the utility's ability to control or not control how it's used.
Yes, I'll do that one. So basically the difference between the front of the meter and behind the meter is that the front of the meter solution allows us to control all these resources based on our needs. Our goal for this DER is to address our peak energy resource. And if we're able to basically, like aggregate all these resources and dispatch them, like based on our forecast, based on our needs, then that will be more beneficial for Glendale. So the behind the meter is basically, like whatever they produce and they use, and we don't have access to that one. So it depends on how each of these resources are configured. And having, like thousands of these installed across the city, it would be hard for us to see, to have visibility of our load and what resources are out there.
So in other words, if I understand you correctly, if an individual like me, for instance, who lives in a single family home and installs a rooftop solar system and then adds a commercially available battery to back that system up, that doesn't give GWP the flexibility to respond to, for instance, one of these peak events in the way that it would if that battery and that solar system was directly accessible to the GWP system. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes, because we don't have access to your storage.
Right. Okay. So I just think that's an important distinction that may not be kind of front of mind in our ratepayers' minds, is the difference between having a system which backs up the usage in your individual home or in your building versus a system-wide, a battery or a storage system that's available system-wide. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. So the next one that we're also looking at is that, like DERs around our existing commercial and residential PV customers. So we already have all this PV installation. So we're looking at this solution wherein, like proposers, I guess, or vendors out there would provide proposals and like for energy storage. So basically providing energy storage for our existing PV installations. We're also looking for incremental energy efficiency or additional energy efficiency program that is incremental to what we have underlying, additional demand response, as well as, like any other renewable distributed generation paired with energy storage. So the plan is to release this RFP at the end of this month. And they would have, like 1 month to respond to that one. And, like we're looking at late June for evaluation and selection. And we don't have any dates yet set for city council approval to negotiate and award the contract. Next slide, please. So our integrated resource plan, the CEC requires updating of the IRP every 5 years. So our next IRP is due to the CEC in January of 2020. So our plan is to have a full IRP process wherein we, go back to our stakeholders and gather inputs from them and evaluate, different scenarios based on reliability, affordability, sustainability, and equity. And we will also provide a pathway in there, or several pathways, hopefully, for 100% clean and to be able to reach that goal earlier than 2045. In addition, we're actually looking at contracting with NREL. It's the National Renewable Energy Lab. So they were the one who helped LA develop their LA 100. We're looking for their help, and hopefully we would have some, results from that one before the end of the year, as we, get into the preparation of the IRP next year. Next slide, please. So for Grayson Repower updates, so back in February, the City Council certified the final EIR and adopted Alternative 7, which includes the 75 megawatt Tesla battery and 93 megawatts of Wärtsilä engines, or 5 Wärtsilä engines, for a total of 93 megawatts. On March 1st, the City Council amended the Alternative 7 resolution to proceed with basically all of Alternative 7 proposed items, except for the purchase of the Wärtsilä engine. So this includes the separation of Unit 9 from Grayson Power Plant, demolition of Units 1 through 8, procurement of Tesla energy storage system, the EPC to integrate these Tesla batteries into the Grayson site, and EPC to prepare for potential addition of up to 5 megawatts of Wärtsilä engines, as well as, air permits and procurement of emission reduction credits, as well as all the required bondings for the project. The staff is also tasked to return to City Council by December 2022 for the decision regarding the purchase of the Wärtsilä engines. And to just to highlight some of the related activities after after this after the certification of the EIR, the South Coast AQMD has already been notified that the EIR proposed project and Alternative 8 are being withdrawn. The addendum to the Unit 9 separation bid specification has been issued to interested bidders. The closing date has been pushed out for 2 additional months to provide bidders adequate time to prepare bids following the City Council decision. An addendum on the demolition and site improvement RFP has also been issued with a new closing date of October 28th. The RFP for the balance of site EPC is currently being prepared. The EPC contract negotiations with Tesla are ongoing. We just want to note, though, that the market price of lithium has continued to escalate. And between January and March, the index has actually increased by 38%. So there would be some cost impact due to that. The EPC negotiations with Wärtsilä are currently on hold due to the uncertainty on the number of engines at this time. Grayson Power Plant is scheduled to be unavailable beginning Q4 of this year. So on the power supply side, staff has reached out to LADWP seeking for energy supply during the summer months of 2023, 24, and 25. So based on our initial discussions with their energy resource management team, they actually verbally agreed to help us during the summer of 23, with a caveat that if A gas curtailment will cause LADWP to shed load. They will have the option to cut deliveries to GWP before they shed their native load. And they want this to be memorialized on the transaction agreement. So LA cannot commit on anything beyond 18 months per policy. However, they have indicated that they can potentially accommodate a request for energy in summer of 24. 2025 will be a tough year for everyone. So this is due to the scheduled shutdown of Diablo Canyon Nuclear Facility. And based on our discussion with them, we feel like they're hesitating to extend assistance through 25 at this time. Next slide, please. So Shoal Canyon. So on the Shoal biogas plant project, the City Council has certified the final EIR and approved the conditional use permit and special recreation review, along with the mitigation monitoring and reporting program back in November. Recently, we along with the owner's engineer issued a request for qualification for engineering and construction of the city's biogas renewable generation project. So the objective of this RFQ is to qualify and shortlist EPC contractors eligible to submit a proposal. So the city's intent is to shortlist 3 to 5 of the qualified applicants who will be invited to submit a proposal for the proposed project. So an EPC RFP, or request for proposal, will be issued late this month to the shortlisted applicants. So they have about 2 months to submit their proposal. And the plan is to bring the recommended contract to City Council for awarding, and at the same time request approval to issue the final notice to proceed by July. So construction will begin in September. That's the EPC site mobilization. And we anticipate the facility to be up and running by November of 23. So on the power supply update, so Eland 1 storage, solar and storage is actually on track for July 2023 commercial operation date.
I think we need to go to the next slide.
Yeah, go ahead. Yes, I'm so sorry. Yeah, next slide, please. So Eland 1 is on track for July COD. We do want to highlight, though, that last Friday, LADWP posted their proposal for increase in transmission. Based on the posted rates, we are seeing a significant increase in transmission costs. Based on like a back of the envelope calculation, it would probably double our transmission costs to bring Eland home to the city of Glendale. Our Star Peak geothermal, like I mentioned earlier, Star Peak geothermal COD has been delayed. So the original schedule was April of 2021. So now they have a new target of June of 2022. So they're saying it's due to COVID, their supply chain issues, and labor shortage. So currently they're paying delay damages for the delays.
So when you said that transmission rates were increasing, does that mean for that particular project or overall?
Yes, so it's overall. So it's the ORA, what they call this open access transmission tariff. So it's general. So it's not just for Eland. So if, let's say, we would go back to LA and buy additional transmission, it would be, like it's basically their market price, is their tariff rate.
So we have to purchase transmission when we go out and purchase a project or purchase power from a project like Eland. we then have to do a separate negotiation with LADWP for how much they're going to charge for the transmission, or how is that done? Or is it sold as a package? Like, here's the solar power and here's the cost of the transmission, and so you buy it or you don't.
Yeah, so Elan is different. Normally, when we buy solar project, it goes through our either like our PDCI line or like the Southwest AC side line. So we already have transmission coming to our system from those two lines. So with Elan, it's actually delivered at Barren Ridge. So the way it works is that we entered into a contract through SCAPA for the solar and storage, the generation from solar and storage. It's delivered at Barren Ridge. And to bring that energy to Glendale, we have to purchase transmission rights or transmission access from LADWP to delivery to Airway. And that's the piece that we were talking about here. So we purchased that leg of transmission based on their oat rate. And this oat rate is not fixed. So they could change it anytime. And well, when I say anytime, it has to be approved approved by FERC. This would be the same price that everyone would be paying when they purchase transmission from LA. So it's not like a negotiated price. It is a fixed price for any transmission transaction with LA, which is firm point-to-point transmission.
If I can add to that, so the OAT tariff rates also affect the rates that Glendale pays under the BASA, because those are based on the OAT, the Open Access Transmission Tariff as well. LA does not go to FERC for approval, but they do have a process whenever they approve their new tariff where those rates get evaluated. And so that's what they've just introduced at this time.
Thanks, Christine. I misspoke on the FERC. So for I think we've covered Star Peak. So the next project that I do want to discuss here is our Intermountain Power Project. So the EPC contract has been approved and awarded to this company, that the industrial company. So they will be building the natural gas and hydrogen facility. And we have also approved and awarded the contract for hydrogen storage services and conversion to Advanced Clean Energy Storage, or ACES company. These are two big deals because, like it took a while for us, including the exiters for the project and the remainers, which is basically Glendale, Burbank, and LA, of course. And the next project.
Are you saying we had an IPP exit? We had PEXIT? Is that what we had?
We have
some of this.
Yeah, we have what we call the exiters and the remainers. So
right.
Yes.
It just reminded me of Brexit. So I made a very terrible joke. Call it PEXIT. So I'm interested in this because I'm wondering, when the repowering of Intermountain of IPP is scheduled for the middle of this decade, correct?
That is correct. So 2025 is the yes, expected COD for the facility.
Right. And right now it's a coal plant, correct?
It is currently a coal plant, yes.
Right. And so it's going to be repowered and so they've selected who's going to repower it. And when they repower it, it's going to be a mix of natural gas and hydrogen, correct?
That is correct, yes.
And then it's scheduled to transition over time from natural gas mixed with hydrogen to hydrogen mixed with natural gas. And then eventually the goal is to have it as a 100% hydrogen project, correct?
That is correct.
And do you know how long that will take?
So the plan is to, if LA wants 100% by 2035, then they need to have this facility converted to 100% by 2035. But we are not really, like looking forward to have this 100% by 2035. So it would be probably extended, and definitely before 2045, we would have 100% hydrogen.
Okay, but when it opens, when it's sort of relaunched with the new turbines, it would be what, like a 70-30 mix between
Yes.
natural gas and hydrogen?
Yeah, that is correct. So it would run on 30% hydrogen on day one, which is, like in 2025, we would have hydrogen in this facility.
Oh, that soon? 2 years?
Yeah, that's correct. Yes. So that's the goal. That's the plan. And that's what we're aiming for. 2025, we will have hydrogen.
Right. And then they have a kind of transition plan for that very, very large. What is the output of that project? It's huge. It's like 1,000 megawatts. It's enormous, right? 850 megawatts?
Yeah, it is a let me just get my mic once.
Oh, I don't want to distract you, but
I'm sorry.
I just want to
have it in here.
It's
in my notes. It's 840. Yeah, sorry. I just had them like
You said 840?
840 megawatts.
Right. It's huge. And it's being proposed as being repowered with a mix of natural gas with like 30% hydrogen, and it will probably take 7 to 10 years to convert fully to hydrogen based on the technology as it currently stands. Do you think that's a reasonable assumption?
Yeah, I believe so. Yes.
Okay.
So the key thing in here, I guess, is that when we sign this hydrogen energy storage and conversion agreement, which what we call as the ESCA, we have what we call a on-ramp here for Glendale and Burbank, because it's a huge cost, right? And there's so much uncertainties when it comes to counting renewable or counting RECs out of this system. Is it the generation from the plant that is clean, that is considered clean, or is it the energy that we use to generate the hydrogen that would count as RECs? So the regulation is still unclear on that one. And once we have that, that's the time that we could actually, like say that, yeah, now we could join this one and we will start basically, participating in the hydrogen component of the project.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. And I'm sorry if I'm, I don't want you to feel like I'm hounding you with questions, but everything that you're bringing up, this is all really important stuff. And I appreciate your ability to, relay these details and to speak in depth about it. So thank you very much for allowing me to pepper you with questions.
No worries. So moving on to the next project is our Pleasant Valley Wind Project. So the deliveries from this project actually ends this year by June 30th of 2022. So we're currently doing an audit as part of the project closeout. So this is approximately like 11 megawatts that is flowing through the STS line. So no, it's the MTS portion. I'm sorry. Yeah, it's the MTS portion, which we actually are giving up once by 2027. And we will be replacing this project with, like other renewable project that would also go through and delivered at IPP through the SCS line. Next slide, please. Yeah, so that concludes our presentation. And as I mentioned, the project or program managers are also here to answer some of your questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chi. And I see President Peterson is back on, so I will pass on the chairing of this meeting back to him.
Thank you, Commissioner Kudicki. I would suggest that maybe you maintain the baton. I am unfortunately on a train, and there's announcements that come on, which I think you might have heard in the background a little bit. So my apologies to impose upon your ample capabilities, but if you wouldn't mind, I think that would be best for the meeting.
No problem, no problem. Very well. Okay, let's go ahead with questions from the commissioners. I'll ask each commissioner one at a time, give them a chance to ask all their questions. So let's start with Commissioner Flanagan. Do you have any questions?
Yes, thank you very much. And thank you, Chi and Dan, for a really great report. That's I agree with Commissioner Lal. It's a lot of important stuff got laid out there. And I'll start out by asking a little bit in reverse order. Is this new RFP that's going out, is this GWP's response to the Brotman motion at City Council that delayed the decision on the purchase of the Wartsillas? Is this part of the sort of no rock unturned research that we're doing?
That is correct. It actually started last year. We entered into this agreement with a consultant, and we're looking at additional DER programs for commercial facilities and for the existing PV customers. And then after the decision on Grayson and the suggestion of our City Council Brotman, we expanded the scope of the project to include additional DER programs. And we're looking at, maybe there's some additional energy efficiency that we could get out there, or additional demand response, or any other sort of, renewable distributed solar plus storage project. And if you notice, we did not include in the residential solar plus batteries, because we do want Sunrun project, if this one would go through, to be successful, and we want them to have the residential solar customers as their base. So for the DER that we are for this DER project, it's just commercial and maybe energy efficiency and DER on both commercial and residential customers.
Thank you. And I guess the question I have is, and not to make small of it, but is this a fishing expedition where we're casting a trawler net and we're just seeing what's out there? It kind of reminds me of the clean energy RFP of 2 years ago. Is it sort of the same? I mean, I guess I'm wondering whether we have really identified any of the leading vendors of these programs and have really had discussions with them, or whether we're just issuing an RFP to kind of go through the motion.
No, we're issuing this RFP to see, basically, like I've mentioned, we haven't tapped the commercial solar and storage yet. So that is the main goal, to see, whatever we could get from that one. And then at the same time, maybe we could do something with those existing PV customers. That's the main goal of the project. And like we said, we have to add additional energy efficiency and demand response, just in case we would get something more out of that one.
But okay, that makes sense to me. But the timeline that you had on the slide given the past clean energy RFP, where we negotiated for years, your timeline suggested that we would have council approving in the fall and contracts in place maybe in the late fall. Is that at all realistic? I don't think so.
It is a very aggressive schedule. We did not include in there the timeline for city council to award the contract. We have in there the approval for city council to proceed and negotiate, if we've already shortlisted all these vendors, to proceed negotiating with those. That is the timeline that we have, but not the awarding of the contract yet, because, given what we've already been through with Sunrun, it would probably, take longer than that one.
I would think, and I'm a little frustrated. You maybe hear it in my tone, because I introduced two different energy efficiency vendors to GWP probably 6 months ago, Home Connect and SPAN Smart Panels, and we have yet, at least I haven't been notified, but we have yet to be notified of any kind of a meeting. And so I really question why things have to take this long.
If I could jump in here, Commissioner Flanagan. So we definitely, when we do an RFP, we do want to be careful to make sure it's open to everyone and anyone, that we're not favoring particular companies that have a connection to the city or for whatever reason. We just need to be very, very open to accept proposals from anyone that's interested in proposing. Yeah. I would hope and believe that this time it's not going to take 2 years to negotiate a contract. We are hopefully, knock on wood, a little bit beyond the COVID phase, which was definitely a factor. And I'd like to think that we learned a thing or two from having gone through it once before. So I am hopeful that it's not going to be as lengthy as it was last time around.
Thank you. Are we looking at piggybacking on other SCAPA contracts that are in place?
We've been looking at SCAPA's recent RFPs, as well as LADWP has issued an RFP for clean energy solutions. So we're definitely trying to leverage what other utilities are doing, so that we can implement best practices and not, have to reinvent the wheel.
Right. I know from my experience working at LADWP, that was a fantastic way of expediting, not having to go through a lengthy RFP process if there's a vendor that we want. And I guess I would just suggest to staff that we do look at some of the leading vendors around the country and target them and alert them to this RFP coming out and alert them to the fact that we're serious about this. I'm sure some vendors looked at the last time around and said, boy, that took forever, and maybe they're not really serious about it and the timeline seems unrealistic. But let me go back to some of the other resources, some of the solar stuff that we talked about. And you just mentioned, Chi, that we don't want to have any other residential solar incentives because we want to help Sunrun out in their marketing. I take exception to that. I think we should have both the virtual power plant model, which is the Sunrun model, and that we should have behind the meter solar and storage that are independently owned. And the fact that we just cut the Sunrun contract in half after 2 years of negotiating, I find really alarming. And I don't think it's a good deal at all, the Sunrun deal for a homeowner. And I think we should be looking at having behind the meter solar incentives and behind the meter solar financing available, solar plus storage available. But one of the things that's always kind of bugged me in the utility world is that we can't get RPS credit for customer-owned solar, right? So we have 23 megawatts, which, congratulations, team. We have 23 megawatts of distributed solar. And I believe that we do not get any RPS credit for that, right?
We do get RPS credit, what we call it a bucket 3 for the 11 megawatts that we've incentivized, only for those facility. But, going forward, we don't get credits for those anymore.
Yeah, I wonder whether that's something that SCAPA maybe could take up, or, I know in the IOU, in the investor-owned utility, there's always been a perverse disincentive for the utilities. They don't really want to lose the revenues and then not get the RPS credit for distributed solar. It just seems like it's a policy miss to me. So you mentioned pump storage hydro. I didn't know we had a facility. What is the size of that facility?
It's a 400 kilowatt facility. Maybe our AGM, Mike DeGhetto, could provide more details on that one.
Commissioner Flanagan, you know, it's not pumped storage. It's a hydro turbine where we're getting water from Metropolitan at a higher HGL than the HGL that we need in our system. And so we're just, whenever we run that facility, we generate electricity there. And then what it does is offset energy used, like she said, at that pump station.
Gotcha. It's on to LCFS credits just for a second. When we provide an incentive for a charger, when we enable a customer to get an electric vehicle charger, are we getting all the low carbon fuel standard credits for those chargers?
Good evening, commissioners. This is Herbert Garcia, PBC marketing manager. As far as the LCFS credits, right now we are only getting credits for those chargers that are, for those cars that are registered here in Glendale. And those are the credits that we're currently receiving. We are currently working on getting credits, LCFS credits for those chargers that are public, that are owned by Glendale, that are publicly accessible. And also looking into receiving those credits as well as for the rebates that we're giving towards the EV chargers as well.
Gotcha, thank you.
Not a problem.
So back to just Sunrun for a second, negotiating here for 2 years. And I watched the council meeting, and when they had all these objections to the contract, and I thought, oh my God, we're never going to resolve this. Termination issue, size, cost, duration, incentives, bankruptcy provisions, liabilities. Chi, are you optimistic that we're getting there with these guys?
We're looking, we're hopeful. We're looking forward to that one. We're working with Sunrun to, you know, like to address these issues. And Christine here is working, you know, like with all our risk and brokers to make sure that we are covered when it comes to like bankruptcy and, you know, like protecting our homeowners.
Yeah. Are they requiring us to not offer incentives for residential solar aside from their program? Are they asking for that? Or are we offering that?
That's not, you know, we don't want to get honestly too deep into the details because we are still in negotiations with Sunrun, but I can tell you that that is not a term of the contracts as they were presented to council before. We just are mindful of the fact that we've asked them to guarantee a certain amount of installation so that, you know, if we have programs that are potentially in competition with the Sunrun program, we don't want to shoot ourselves in the foot. We really do want this to be a successful program. So we need to sort of balance that with wanting to make sure that we are, of course, encouraging solar in the city.
I think that makes sense, but we did just drop our program size in half. And again, I think there's two very clear avenues for homeowners. One to join the city, the VPP program, and one to do it on their own. And I think given our council direction to figure out what we can get, I mean, to leave no rock unturned, that I think we ought to be looking at incentives for residential solar and not worry too much about Sunrun. They're doing a great job nationally with all their programs. I think it's fair to say. Dan, Mr. Scorza, Dan, you presented the city properties. Again, I was on a team that bid to provide that service to the city. I don't know, 3 years ago maybe. And then the city pulled it back, and then the city said, we're going to study this. Do these studies really take that long?
So, Commissioner Flanagan, I don't remember. So I've been here 3.5, almost 4 years. So when we issued this city-owned property, I don't think we had done it to this scale. There may have been some other studies, but as I described it, we were looking, so maybe I didn't mention this, we started over 100 properties that the city owns. I'm not exactly sure where we're at. We're probably near, 80 or 70 properties, somewhere there. because some turned out to be old historical buildings that could not sustain solar on their roof or on the property. And then there were some structural issues with some facilities. So we're doing a comprehensive study. So it's not just looking to see what the potential is because of rooftop space, but it's actually looking at the engineering behind it so that we don't get into a project and then find out that, oh, if you do this, let's take just a hypothetical. We may be looking at a $3 million PV system that provides a megawatt or more, but it turns out then you have to put $7 million worth of structural and code updates, and maybe even on top of that, $1 million more for an elevator to meet some ADA requirements, which currently are met in a different fashion. So there is no violation of existing rules, but if we touch it and we're going to upgrade it, we end up spending a lot more on the upgrade of the facility than getting solar. So we wanted to quantify that, and that's why this is taking longer.
And this is my business, Dan. We're evaluating buildings all the time: structural, electrical upgrades, roofing upgrades. We do this all the time. I don't think it takes this long, and I think we have urgency. We've just heard from Chi that the summer of 2025 we're in trouble unless something changes, and so I think we have to. That's my sense is that we need to be. Council has delayed this. My sense is that we need to be more aggressive on the demand side with the distributed resources and move it faster as if we have a crisis. I think we may have a crisis in the summer of 2025 at the speed that we're going.
Commissioner Flanagan, could I just interject about that earlier proposal that you were referencing? That included some water sites.
Yeah.
And I just have to say that a lot of the proposals that were related to that were just very poor quality. And it kind of seemed like someone took a Google map and drew a boundary and cut and pasted solar panels on top of it. And at some of our water facilities, there's hatches, there's access places, there's things we have to do in order to get in those facilities. So my impression had been that maybe the main firms that were proposing that maybe we're used to doing things on houses, but not on industrial utility facilities. And so this process that Mr. Scores is working on, he had a lot of input in as well. And it just seemed like we needed to be the drivers of it, to have a thorough engineering analysis where it's a project that GWP is going to have contractors install and put in, and that we're going to own, instead of just kind of writing it over like happens a lot of times on the homeowner level, rooftop solar. So I realize it takes a while, and maybe if we had done it from that perspective to begin with, instead of just getting quotes from various solar firms, it might have gone faster then. And I think with Mr. Scorza doing it this way, it'll definitely go faster on the implementation part of it. We won't be standing at a project about to break ground and realize we can't do it. So I hope that gives some help.
Well, that's a good point. Perma City Solar that was proposing, that was the lead on that team. I agree that they did a sort of a Google Earth analysis, but they had just that year installed the largest rooftop solar system in America. So they're not a small firm. They've been bought by a company called Catalyze now. That's a big national firm. Clearly, they're on the go. A couple thoughts on storage. I really like...
Commissioner Flanagan, 1 second, please, if I may interrupt you. Ms. Godinez, I know there's other commission meetings. They may require the video system and what have you to broadcast subsequent meetings. Do we have a hard cutoff time for this meeting today?
Catalina, can you cover that?
I don't believe so, but let me double check with them and I'll let you know.
Because I think there is the 6:30 pension committee meeting. I just want to let you know. Anyways, and the second question I had, Ms. Godin, is this particular topic is very important and there is a subsequent agenda item. If for whatever reason we're not able to get to it, would we be able to postpone it or do we have to rush through it? What's the procedure?
Commissioner Kadikian, this commission could certainly continue this item and or agendize it again for follow-up discussion. So it's the commission's preference, whatever you'd like to do to proceed.
Okay, I would like to spend as much time as possible on this particular item. So Commissioner Flanagan, if you want to continue with your questions, please.
Yeah, thank you, President. Acting President Kadiki, I'm sorry I'm being a little long-winded. I've just got a couple more questions, then I'll pass the baton. I just wanted to say that I really am attracted to the idea of putting batteries on our substation sites, the 13 substation sites. It seems like that's a real clear path for us. I know a lot of other utilities are doing that. Should be under our control, and that should be a very, very good thing. You also mentioned looking for programs that offer storage for existing solar systems. I'm very, very in favor of that. I am cognizant that the tax credit code right now, you do not get the investment tax credit for storage when it's not paired with solar. That may change, so that might be something that we want to keep an eye on, because if the investment tax credit structure changes, you'd be able to get 25 or 26% or 22% or 30%, whatever it is, on those unpaired storage systems. I wanted to ask you just a question on Shoal Canyon, because it sounds like things are moving fast, which is I find exciting. Is there a lawsuit right now against us?
Commissioner Flanagan, good afternoon, Doreen Martirosian. Yes, there is a lawsuit against us. Because there's a pending litigation, we can't really get into much detail about the lawsuit, but you are correct. There is one.
Okay, so we have a delay on that. And then I've heard that, that there may be a lawsuit on the Grayson project as well. So all more, I guess, all more delays, unfortunately, in the process. But I just did want to say thank you very much for the presentation, and thanks to what you all are doing in pushing this forward. I know that the commission, our job is to even push you harder, and it seems as though we're approaching a crisis situation. And we've talked about this in past meetings, that if we don't have the resources, whether they're on the supply side or the demand side, we're going to have rolling blackouts, and we're going to be in a world of hurt in the city. So that's really that's the spirit of push that comes from me. Thank you, President Kadikian.
Thank you, Commissioner Flanagan. Catalina, do we have an answer on the cutoff time?
Yes, 6:15 the latest.
6:15 the latest. Okay. All right. Let's move to next Commissioner. Commissioner Jasmine, did you have any questions you wanted to ask?
I just had one question regarding Grayson and the LADWP helping during the summers and during peak events. If LADWP cannot help, is there anyone else that you thought about approaching to help as well? Making a deal so that there's a backup to the backup, because it sounds like we're going to be have some problems, especially with the gas the way it's going.
Yeah, we're working with our neighboring cities to extend some help. With LA, they could only help us so, not all of our requirements are actually going to be be covered by LADWP. So we're looking for other opportunities out there, especially, like participants from of Magnolia Power Plant. Maybe they have something in there that they could provide Glendale, because that's something that we could actually, use without relying on our transmission, because at that point, our transmission are already going to be packed at that time. So the only participants or projects that we could actually count on is the, like the Magnolia Power Plant and of course, LADWP.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Commissioner Jasmine. Commissioner Peterson, did you have any questions you wanted to ask?
No, thanks to Commissioner Flanagan. I think he's done a very thorough job of exploring.
Okay. I think we understood. You cut off for a while, but I think we got the idea. All right. Commissioner Lal, did you have any questions you would like to ask?
Yes, thank you, Commissioner Kadikian. I found the slide where you went through the RPS. It may have been slide 8. I found that one a little bit confusing. Or that this is the energy efficiency slide. When you say percentage of retail sales, what does this measure on slide 8?
Okay, so for energy efficiency, that's a comparison to our California utilities. So each of these utilities listed here, we're all different in terms of size. So for us to be able to come up with some sort of a common denominator here, it's based on our retail sales. So meaning it's based on our load, right? So it calculates, it's basically a ratio of energy savings compared to the retail sales, compared to the load of the system. LA would have, like I think their peak load is about like 6,000. I'm not sure, what their total generation is, but that's how we calculated this one. The denominator is basically the total sales for the year.
Okay, so if we're at 1.5%, what does that mean? 1.5% of our total retail sales in our service area?
Yeah, so basically we are covering up to 1.5% equivalent, saved under this energy efficiency.
Okay, all right. Okay, thank you. And then on slide number 4, the RPS standards, the red line that goes sort of from the center of the graph up to the top, identifies that right sort of in the center of this graph, there's the year 2030 with a goal of 60%. And so I'm confused about what that means. I find this graph quite confusing. So 100% at the top is 100% renewables, and we're showing a mix between, it's just when you look at the graph, it looks like our percentage of our RPS goes up and then it goes down. But I don't think that's the case.
No, actually, you are correct with that one.
Oh, okay.
So the blue line is basically the renewable target. So the target is by 2030, we have to be at 60%, and we have to maintain that one, right? 60% renewable. And then they're saying that by 2045, you have to be 100% clean or zero carbon. So it could be, like any other facility for as long as it is zero carbon facility. But the goal is you can be below 60% renewable at any given point in time. So you're correct when you say it kind of like goes up and down. That's because of the, that's our portfolio mix at this time. We do have some contracts that's going to roll off. And those are the items that we have to, cover or replace. So basically the dark green bar should surpass or meet that blue line, if that makes sense.
Right, because we're not going to be going out. Nobody's going to be building a coal plant in the next 20 years that we're then going to go out and buy energy from. So the reason that those bars go up and up and up and up and then go down and down and down and down is actually because the contracts are disappearing. But probably at that point, or definitely at that point, GWP would be purchasing or entering into new contracts with clean energy providers that would bring that number back up, right?
You're absolutely right.
This graph represents firm contracts of power we are purchasing and the diminishing or the decreases are because those contracts, as contracts do, eventually expire and then they will have to be replaced with new contracts, right?
That is correct.
Okay.
Yeah, so these are just, like firm, existing, or they're already contracted. Like I said, like this includes Eland. Eland is not gonna be online until 2023, so 2024. So you would see that in there.
Right.
So you could see that uptick in the like the bars, the size of the bars.
So in actual fact, we would expect these bars to just continually be stepping up over the coming years and decades because the amount of renewable energy that GWP is purchasing is going to be increasing, not decreasing.
That is correct. Yes.
Okay.
So we will be replacing those and making sure that, like we meet at least, like that blue bar, and then eventually we will meet that red bar.
Right. Okay. And the other thing I wanted to ask about is for people like me who have rooftop solar that is behind the meter, so it's it's on my home. How can we participate, or can we participate in any of these demand response programs? Because it's been my experience so far that my solar system does not in any way, and these solar systems generally do not interface with GWP's demand response systems.
Do you want to take that one, Herbert?
Hello, Chi. I will defer that to Aneta. Aneta, you're on the call?
Yes. Good evening. Sorry, I was trying to unmute myself. So with the current demand response program, your solar system would not necessarily be a part of that formula. It's a thermostat program that we have with Franklin. What we're looking into for other programs to put an RFP out for, that could be that could be one of the options we offer. That could be a program we would come up with for you to be able to install energy storage, but it would have to be most likely before the meter, not behind the meter, in front of the meter. I'm not sure what options there would be for behind the meter energy storage combined with solar to participate in the demand response program. That's something we would have to explore within the limits of this RFP. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it's I mean, I'm not able to have my rooftop system communicate really with GWP's systems. It would be nice if we could really exploit this 23 megawatts of rooftop that we have existing in the city that, the citizens of the city in many cases have paid out of their own pockets to install. So maybe that's something that we'll see come through with this RFP, is to have a company come in and propose a way to have these systems sync more seamlessly with GWP's systems to make our entire grid stronger and to make it more resilient, and so that GWP can really track how much power is coming out of these systems. And as Commissioner Flanagan was saying, perhaps have storage closer to load so that we can be storing the electricity. I'm remembering a conversation that I had with Mr. Zern years ago about the fact that a lot of these solar systems were really installed in a way to maximize output, but not really designed to maximize output at a time when demand is high, right? So they're designed to really, suck up a lot of electrons and produce a lot of electricity when I'm sitting here in my office, right? Not using it. So I wish we could capitalize on that.
We do track the production of the systems we have in place currently, so we know exactly how much power this 23 megawatts is producing on a meter level. So we know exactly how much our solar system is producing, and we also know how much of it is coming back to the grid. So that is being tracked. But as far as having control over that power, we would need batteries, obviously, in order to be able to distribute it at the time we need.
Right. To do that all critical time delay that we're looking for with renewable energy.
Correct.
Okay. I think that's it for my questions.
Thank you, Commissioner Lal. Thank you to the staff for this presentation. I think as a commissioner myself, and what I'm hearing from the other commissioners, there's tremendous amount of concern about our ability to meet the demand that is coming from the different sectors for energy, and also our adoption of new renewables, whether Sunrun just got cut in half, is causing tremendous concern to me. What I don't want to happen is, I think the delay in Shoal Canyon and the delay in Grayson is just going to make it harder and harder for 2023, 24, and 25. And after that, further to meet our obligations in providing the power that we need. And what I would like to do is to make it clear to all stakeholders that as a commissioner, I want to put out the warning that we may be coming close to a crisis issue, and we don't want to have failed in recognizing that. So at some point, I will discuss with Ms. Godinez about options that us as a commissioner we can do to present to City Council or whoever else as to bring it to their attention about the urgency that we need to move forward, whether it's with Shoal Canyon, whether it's with Grayson, whether we're having difficulty in getting power from LADWP. If they can help, if they can talk to LA City Council members, we need to let them involved in this. What I don't want to happen is the system failing while it's on our watch. As a commissioners for the GWP, I don't want that to happen while it's on our watch. So with that said, I do have some questions and concerns. With regards to slide 9, for example, that's the adoption of EV power. And it sounds like we're increasing our adoption for ZEV, whether that's fuel cell, hybrid, battery, electric, about 0.5% each year. So how much is that increasing in megawatts to our base load? For every 0.5% or 1%, how much increase are we getting in our base load? Anybody?
Do we have the calculation, Herbert?
I mean, if we can get that number, I don't want to put people on the spot because, but my concern is, again, I know cars are coming. I know transportation is coming, and we should make it clear that for every 1% adoption in cars in Glendale, we're going to have our base load increase by X megawatts. If we can have that number at some point, that would be good. If we have it now, wonderful. If not, let's make sure we get it.
Good evening, this is Herbert Garcia. We don't at this time, I don't have that data with me, but that's definitely something we can look into in providing.
Okay, thank you. With regards to this...
I had a comment on that as well, Commissioner Kadikian. One of the issues is also the type of charger that gets in there. If it's DC fast chargers, they're much larger versus the level 2 chargers that people normally get at their home. So it depends also on that. And I don't know if we can predict that, but we can, we'll get the numbers for what we have, but there's those two different options. And the level 3 chargers are getting larger and larger because people don't want to wait, half an hour and only charge half. They want to charge fully. So then you might end up with a 300 kilowatt system. So it depends on the type of charger that are going in. And I've seen requests for having large charging stations within Glendale. That also will increase our load. Not particularly owned by homeowners, but would be owned by a corporation or somebody like Tesla who would put in a supercharging station, within the city limits. So
if I could make a comment, I think you're absolutely right. This is a huge load that we're facing. However, if we prepare for the vehicle to grid future and we put in bi-directional chargers everywhere and give incentives to homeowners to allow the vehicles to be discharged, just like the stationary batteries, then all of a sudden those EVs and e-buses and e-trucks could become a huge asset in the city.
That's certainly, I hope it all works out. I hope the manufacturers adopt it, and but I think it's quite a way. Maybe at least at this point we can get a historical saying for every 0.5 point or 0.5% or 1% of EV adoption, our base load is increasing by 10 megawatts, 50 megawatts, whatever it is. Okay. Next one was with regards to slide number 10, where we have the city-owned EV charging infrastructure, and we're generating some revenue. Is the revenue basically paying for all the electricity and maintenance for those chargers, or is the city subsidizing some of this?
Hello, Commissioners. This is Herbert Garcia again. The revenue that we're receiving from those chargers are basically just offsetting, paying the energy of those chargers, the infrastructure for those, the cell communication, anything that's related to those particular units that are owned by the city. So it is going back as far as just covering the expenses of those units.
Okay. Now, with regards to Sunrun, I am disappointed or concerned that we just cut our projection with them. And I mean, it's better to be safe than sorry. So it's better to be realistic about this and not hope for go for a dream and never catch it. But when we were talking about this, they made it sound like this is going to be the end all be all and it's going to fix all of our problems. And suddenly we're seeing all this. And that's the problem I see with a lot of these new technologies that are being adopted, that, we're hoping for something, but then push comes to shove when we ask guarantees, we're not getting them. And again, it's just building up my concern with regards to reliable electricity that we have to provide that is part of our mandate. So, and not to mention the cost that is difference between what you get from a virtual power plant compared to otherwise. So with that said, we're going to slide number 18. Wasillas are on hold because of City Council's decision for looking for yet more alternative renewable energy. And that's good. We're exploring city-owned power. But with regards to LADWP, I think you mentioned that for 2023, at least they had a lot of conditions, something about gas and what have you. Could you please repeat that concern or the conditions that LADWP put?
Yeah, so based on our discussion with them, that they actually verbally agreed that verbally agreed that they could help us in 2023. But because of all the issues on Aliso Canyon, they're saying that if, let's say, SoCal curtails the gas, they're not going to load their shed shed their load for Glendale. And that's the condition that they want us to put in the agreement. Should we, like go through push this one with LADWP?
So in layman terms, we're going to get the leftovers, if they have a problem.
That's correct. So we were thinking of they would provide us or they're anticipating to run, like their local generation, maybe the dirtiest plant that they have, to supply our system, to supply our load, because they're matching it with gas, right?
Okay.
Like with a gas supply.
Yeah. Okay, those are the only questions I had, and thank you to the staff for the tremendous job that everybody put in presenting this, and thank you to the commissioners who expressed their concerns. Ms. Godinez, the question is to you. What's the proper mechanism for the commission, if they so choose, to either write a letter or inform City Council that we have concerns and that they should be aware of? They may be watching this, they may be listening to this, but I want it, at least for myself, and we can discuss this amongst the commissioners. Maybe it should be an agenda item, but whether we should send a letter with a list of our concerns and what we are afraid of, basically. What's the process, or how do we do that?
Commissioner Katikian, members of the commission. Yes, so today's agenda item was just an update, so we couldn't develop a motion to do such based on today's agenda, but definitely if it's the commission's desire, that is in your purview to make recommendations to the city manager and to council on these very items. So I would suggest putting it on a future agenda, and then you can develop any sort of recommendation, either in a motion or a letter or both, whatever you think would be appropriate to provide your recommendation to council.
Okay, and the way we would do that, does one of the commissioners make a motion now or later? How do we do that?
I think we should have agenda forecast on our agenda today. So during that time, if two of the commissioners are interested, and I do see some heads nodding, that we could go ahead and put that on a future agenda for you to develop the content. All
right. So I think, do we have any callers on this agenda item, Christina? Catalina.
Commissioner Kadikian, we do not have any callers.
Okay, so the next agenda item, and it sounds like we have a total of half an hour left between this and agenda forecast. Do we have enough time to do the electric reliability report?
I do want to make sure you make time for oral communications if there are speakers, because that's the public's right to speak. I don't know that we have anyone calling in, though.
Okay. Well, let's go ahead and I think the presenter is Ms. Catherine Babacondo. Is that correct? Catherine, how much time do you need for your report?
Hi, good evening, everyone. I think I can have half an hour, maybe. That would be enough for me.
Half an hour is the maximum we have, and we got to give 5 more minutes to...
I can go fast on these slides.
20 minutes?
Yes.
Okay.
I can do that.
All right, Catalina, let's go to the next item.
Our next item is 4B, Electric Reliability Report.
Yeah, so Catherine, she's our senior engineer. She's our expert on the distribution system. Go ahead, Catherine, introduce yourself, and let's go into the slides. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Good evening, everyone. I'm Catherine Babacondo, Senior Electrical Engineer with Glendale Water and Power. I started my work here in 2006, and I'm the manager. I'm overseeing the transmission and distribution group in GWP. So here, I want to share with you the reliability report for the past year. Every year, we collect data from different utilities, and that's what I like to share with you. Catalina, let's move on to the next slide, please. Okay. All right. So here, basically, we want to let you know that our goal is to have reliable, affordable, and sustainable power for our customers. So basically, our system is built upon these three factors, and we want to make sure what we deliver it's reliable. We don't give a lot of outage to customers, and meantime, it's affordable. And anytime we need to repair or upgrade our system, we have the option. So this is what this slide is talking about. Catalina, let's move on. Okay. So basically, here are the indices that we tracked. So there are 3 indices as far as reliability in the industry. SAFE is System Average Interruption Frequency Index. SAIDI is System Average Interruption Duration Index, and KD is Customer Average Interruption Duration Index. All these 3 are important for utilities. They try to track them down, and every year we have those numbers recorded with all the utilities and IOUs. Here we have a small graph showing what is our goal. Here you notice that in this graph, it talks about outages per year and length of the outages. Our goal is basically to minimize those, and ideally we want to have a 0 outage and 0 duration, but we know that with the system that is out there, and it's very influenced by the weather-related issues, it's impossible to have that. But we try. We do our all homework to make sure that we get close to that goal. Catalina, next slide, please. Thank you. Basically, again, in this slide, you can see the definition of each index that we track. SAFE is how often the average customer experiences a sustained outage. SAIDI is duration of interruption of the average customer. And KD means how long it takes to restore an outage for customers. SAIDI and KD, those are in minutes. SAFE, it's a number. It's the frequency of outage for average customer. Catalina, let's go to the next slide, please. All right, so once we are reporting those indices, all right, while we are reporting these indices, we like to follow some rules to make sure that we are comparing apple to apple. Basically, we follow IEEE standard rules. And based on these rules, there are some exemptions that we need to make. We don't report every kind of outage. Those exemptions are interruptions that are as a result of outages on customer-owned facilities, because we don't have control on those facilities. And if any system causes an outage, we don't count against our system. The second exclusion is if we have an outage that is due to a neighboring utility, a major failure had happened in neighboring utilities, and we have an outage as a result of that. So those interruptions are excluded from reliability report. If in our system we have a outage that more than 10% of utility customers are affected, or more than 15% of system facilities are down, then we don't have to count that against our system. Outages that are less than 5 minutes, they are excluded again. And the reason is most of utilities that have reclosers in their system, it depends, they can set to these reclosers to react in different times. Therefore, as per IEEE standard, those doesn't need to count against our system. So we exclude those type of outages. So the next one is pre-planned interruptions. If there is any outage that we do because of system upgrade or maintaining a system, and we notify customer ahead of time from outage, those are counts towards pre-planned interruptions, and they don't need to be part of the reliability indices. Okay, Catalina, let's move on to the next one. So here in this slide, we are comparing us in terms of safety, in terms of frequency of outages with IOUs, investor-owned utilities. So as you can see, our numbers are increasing as we move forward from 2017 towards 2021. The numbers are like increasing, then it gets better. 2021 numbers are much better, for all these indices. If you compare our number with IOUs, it looks a little bit hard compared to the IOUs. That means that the frequency of outage happens in our system more than IOUs. So safety, it means if you were a customer and you were to ask us where we stand in terms of frequency of outage, this is what we measure. Next slide, please. Yeah. Here we have SAIDI. The factors look not too bad for GWP. This is the duration of the outage. Compared to IOUs, we have a better number. And even in 2021, it shows that we have a slight decrease on that number, which is good. So again, this has to have a direct correlation with the size of the utility. I mean, the more utility geographically is bigger, it's more complex, and restoration, it takes longer to restore the outage. Therefore, for IOUs, because they are considerably larger than our Glendale service territory area, therefore we see a higher number for IOUs. Catalina, next one, please. Okay, here we see KD. KD is our restoration time, the average time to restore service. Again, our restoration time is much better than IOUs, and it's because of the same reason that we discussed in previous slide. This is measured in minutes, and again, it looks like municipalities, they do much better compared to IOUs, as the IOUs are more complex and they have larger geographic area. Let's move on to the next slide. Thank you. So here we look at our neighbor utilities. This is the safety factor. Again, it's the frequency of outage that customer can experience. Our numbers compared to other utilities are higher. That shows that we are experiencing more outages here. And it has a direct impact with the population. I mean, Glendale is much dense city compared to Burbank. We have more electrical customers. Therefore, if outage happen, we can see more of frequency of outages happening. We are taking some measures to address those, to mitigate those, and I can explain that in the next slides. Let's move on to the next one. Okay. SAIDI. Yeah, this is the duration of the outage. If we compare that, the average duration, the duration of outage that an average customer would experience is this number. This is the factor. If we compare to Burbank and Pasadena, our numbers are a little bit, again, bigger, but it's better compared to LA. So Burbank and Pasadena, they have in order of 60,000 and 70,000 customers, whereas we have 90,000 customers. So next slide, please. All right, KD. This is the most important index for reliability. It's basically the restoration time. KD, by definition, is SAIDI divided by SAIFI. So if you look at the restoration time for Glendale, it doesn't look bad compared to other neighboring utilities. For 2021, it was 70 minutes. This means here we benchmarked us against other utilities. If you were a customer in Glendale and you were to experience an outage, it would take 70 minutes long. If you ask us how long it would take, the answer would be 70 minutes long. So if we compare our number to Pasadena, let's say, for 2020, for us, it was like 60 minutes. For them, it was like 85 minutes to restore it. As I explained in previous slide, we are larger than Pasadena in size and in size of customers we have. So I think the number that we see here for KD restoration time is very good. That shows that our crew are responding faster compared to other utilities. That's what I would think. So Katarina, next slide, please. All right. So here is the data. Here is what was causing the outages. So basically, we have a database in our system. Every outage, if it's a feeder outage, not partial outage, every outage is registered in this database. And anytime we want, we can create a chart or graph like such for everyone. So in this pie chart that you see, we categorize the outages by the events. And you can see there are different categories. It can be outages that was created by cable failures. So the other part, outages due to equipment failures. We have bird and squirrels, outages that are caused by birds and squirrels. And also, we have a lot of outages because of trees, tree limbs, and palm fronds. If you notice on this graph, the majority of outages are because of bloom, or we tag them unknown. The reason we have this unknown category is when our guys, they get to the outage location, and if they cannot find an evidence, they have to mark it as an unknown. Most of these unknowns are because of the wind. You know, momentarily those wires, they come into contact together, they create an outage. But we don't have any. We can't find any event. I mean, any evidence. That's why they're tagged unknown. In the past 5 years, in total we have like 336 outages, feeder outages. Next slide, please. So here is a simulation that it shows how the balloons, when they get into contact with primary wires, they can create an outage. So let's move on to the next one, Katarina. All right. So from the pie chart, we realized that majority of outages are due to mylar balloons. So because we used to have a lot of outages, thanks to City Council members, they on October of 2020, they adopted the ordinance to prohibit the sale of electrically conducted mylar balloons. This was very helpful, and this ordinance was so successful. So even neighboring utilities are looking into to do that. So in the past 5 years, 26% of our outages were because of balloons, and total, if we count those, there were like 89 outages. Next slide, please. All right, here is tree trimming program. So in that pie chart, we had a lot of outage due to palm fronds and trees, and also winds. These all are related. So we were proactive. So we increased our budget so we can address the wildfire issues because of climate changes we've seen in the area. So we are aggressively trimming our trees. We are going a lot more aggressive, and we exceed, and we are putting more clearance to not allow some of the events from occurring. So basically, we have 2 line forestry supervisors that oversee our tree trimming contractors. The job of contractors is to trim trees up to communication level. In the past, we used to trim them up to secondary levels, but we go behind and we are very proactive on that. And it costs us a little bit more, but it saves us much more. That's why we extend our trimming to communication level. This tree trimming is a cyclical project. Every tree, it will be revisited within 1.5 years to 2 years, depending on the annual rainfall and the type of the species. Our budget for this fiscal year for tree trimming is $2.5 million. For the next year, we are increasing that budget, and we are hoping that this will help us to increase our reliability. This one, okay. So here, another measures we are taking is our 4 kV, 12 kV conversion program. This is a contract that we are working on. In this project, not only this conversion program, it would prepare us for future where we can put more load on our system. But this conversion program help us to put the wires in much further apart. Now, when the wires are apart, the branches or vegetation, when they break, they can pass through the wires and they don't touch our conductors. That would minimize a lot of outages. It would be very helpful. By doing this project, 4 kV to 8 kV conversion, we are increasing the capacity of system 3 times more. And we are making the system a lot more robust. And the system will be more forgiving in terms of fault due to vegetation. In the meantime, when we do 4 kV, 12 kV project, we upgrade, we change a lot of poles, we replace them, we replace all insulators, all electrical equipment that are on the pole. And this is very helpful because we are proactive and we take care of that before they fail. We are taking all this mitigation effort so we can increase our reliability. All right. One of other projects we have in place, every year we fund for cable replacement project. This is very important. We are proactively replacing aging cables. One of the benefits of undergrounding a system is that the system is protected from vegetation. But when you have an underground system, it won't be sensitive to weather condition. But if any faults happen in underground system, it takes longer time to restore because locating a fault in underground system is very complicated. It's much difficult compared to locating a fault in overhead system. Overhead visibly they can see and they can easily locate it. But that's not the case in underground. However, our goal is to go towards underground because it's better for the city. It makes the look of beautification of the city, And also on overhead, we have another project that we try to replace the open bare conductors with insulated 3 wires. Those are covered conductors. And they are really prone to to any kind of climate issues. Tree limbs and any kind of vegetation, when they come into contact, they won't create an outage when we do 3 wire. This is another project we are looking into, but it's not applicable everywhere because you need to replace the poles, straighten the system, make it ready for high windy season, so that this heavy cable on power poles, it doesn't break the system. Next slide, Catalina.
Catherine,
Yes.
you have 2 minutes, please.
Oh, sure. Wall-time pole replacement project. Now, this is another project we have. We proactively replace our power poles. Vault replacements are very extensive project. We are refurbishing them unless we have to replace them. But every year we fund for these 2 projects, and they are in queue. Next one, Catalina. Okay. Equipment inspection. We have an inspection program in place to identify high-risk facility in terms of identifying infrastructures to replace. We are looking at the data, and we are working with contractor to identify this high-risk facility before they fail. Our goal is basically to minimize the outage. All right. Next slide, please. Okay, and I guess this is the last slide. Here is a question for everybody in commission to ask. So I hope this gave you some indication of the work we're doing in GWP to make sure our reliability stays high compared to other utilities. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Catherine, and thank you for the great presentation. I do apologize for rushing you through it. And I know we have a hard deadline here. Now, with regards to the commissioners, you may have questions, but I don't know if we have the time. So this is what I'll propose to do for now. We'll just hold off the questions for later. Let's move on to the next agenda item for public comments, if there are any. So Catalina, you want to read that, please?
Yes. The next item is 5, oral communications. Discussion is limited to items not part of this agenda. Each speaker is allowed 5 minutes. Commission may question or respond to the speaker, but there will be no debate or decision. The general manager may refer the matter to the appropriate staff for investigation and report. And we do not have any callers.
Okay, very well. Then let's go to the next agenda item, agenda forecast. The first thing I would propose on that one is that we add a question and answer session on this current presentation, which Catherine just did, just to give all commissioners an opportunity to ask something, if that's okay with staff. Would that work for the staff and Catherine?
Yes.
Okay. Could we just add just on the 5-2 May 2nd meeting, just a follow-up Q&A on this presentation?
Yes.
All right. So the second thing, which I guess I can't move because I'm the president, but if any of the commissioners are interested, or maybe Ms. Godinez could correct me, if any of the commissioners are interested in having a discussion about the urgency and how we can present our concerns to City Council, something to that extent.
And as a point of order, Commissioner Kadikian, you can certainly introduce that as well.
Okay, then I'd like to introduce a motion to either prepare a letter or some sort of a recommendation or a motion that we can present to City Council with regards to the concerns that we have with regards to adoption and reliability that we are facing upcoming years. If I can get a second.
I would second that. I would second that.
Okay, I think we got a second. Okay, we can have that on the 5-2 agenda item. So that's for my comments on agenda items for now. Let me go through. Commissioner Flanagan, did you want to add anything on the agenda forecast? You're muted.
I do not. Thank you.
Commissioner Jasmine, did you want to add anything on the agenda forecast?
It would be good to have something on the current drought, an update on that, what's going on with water supplies. And then also, is there anything on rates, water rates? Something, I guess, water rate projections, if that's possible.
I think that's Mike, something can answer.
I can bring something on the current water supply, but as far as rates go, I mean, it's just a really quick, we've got one more rate increase from the last COSA, and then we're going to start our, a new COSA. So it's really more, it's almost 2 years out before we'll come back with any rate increases.
Okay, thank you.
And President Peterson, did you want to address anything on the agenda forecast?
No, I think the discussion that we're going to be having with regard to how we express our concerns is going to take some significant time. One question, I guess the point of order is, do we need to actually vote on that since there was a motion and I seconded it? Do we need to actually take a formal vote to agendize it?
Commissioner Peterson, no, we don't need to do a vote. I would like to make sure there's a second commissioner that will second Commissioner Jasmine-Darian's request for the water. As long as we have 2 commissioners, we can put it on the agenda.
Okay, I second Commissioner Jasmine-Darian's request for the drought.
Thank you.
Okay, and Commissioner Lal, did you have any concerns or issues you would like to address for the agenda forecast?
Well, I appreciate your recommendation, and I would just point out that in June, we're scheduled to have an update on the Grayson repowering project, specifically to talk about the consequences in terms of cost, in terms of emissions, and any other unforeseen consequences of this project being the full decision on the project being pushed out year after year after year. And I think that has direct correlation with the conversation that we've agendized. And I just wonder if there's a way to bring these 2 things together, because I think they're completely interrelated.
I agree they're interrelated, and I think this is a concern that we're going to be addressing on every session. It's something, and it's maybe better to address it on the May agenda and on the June agenda, just to keep things in perspective and on top of it, because I think this is a major concern, and it doesn't hurt to discuss it once, twice, 3 times.
Okay. Yeah, I'm good with that.
Okay. All right, I don't think there's any other items, and we are at 6:14. Can I have an adjournment, please?
I so move.
Okay. Anybody? Okay.
Second that. Thank you all.
All right. Thank you all.